Our lives are laid out on a road of bumps, turns, struggles, and more. How do we respond? How do we endure adversity for learning and growth? I'm Aubrey Johnson, and we'll explore these questions and more on the road to rediscovery. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, pay it forward and uplift others who are struggling through dark times. Now, I want you to know, as a reminder, you can take your listening experience to the next level by subscribing to the Road to Rediscovery Podcast Premium on Supercast. Just get access to exclusive content, right? Bonus material, special episodes, and limited edition gifts and swag, such as coffee mugs, pen styluses, keychains, and a lot more. You'll get special shout outs as well. Only $5 a month or $50 a year. And we have a special offer for this month. If you sign up this month, the first 3 months are half off. That's $250 a month for the first 3 months. Just visit roadtorediscovery.supercast.com. That's road, the number 2, rediscovery, supercast.com. All right. So now, my special guest, wait till you hear this. She is a transformational leadership coach who helps high-achieving female executives unveil their full power, their prowess, and their presence so they can lead unapologetically and make an undeniable impact in their space. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the Brilliance Unveiler, Natalie Jobity. Natalie, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here.
I'm so glad to be on the Road to the Rediscovery podcast.
All right. Thank you. And as you can hear, we're glad you're on as well. All right. So, Natalie, can you start us off by breaking down the difference between transformational and breakthrough coaching and the superpower that you have in unveiling? What is the role that your superpower has in each style of coaching?
Great question. So the difference between breakthrough and transformation, it's a great question. So breakthrough is the aha, the revelation of the insight, like the flip in the script or the click in the brain that goes, oh my gosh, I didn't know or see it that way. That's an amazing thing. But breakthroughs are not what gets us the change. The change comes in the transformation, and the transformation happens when we implement the steps to make the aha part of our new behavior. So whatever that insight or revelation or aha or breakthrough, it just can be a mind thing if we don't do anything about it, which doesn't lead to any change in our lives. The change happens when we take that insight and do something with it to move ourselves forward, or to combat some obstacles we may have had, whatever that breakthrough was. The transformation is in the doing and the being, the different version of yourself to give yourself a different result. So yes.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, for sure. The breakthrough is that aha moment, right? However, it sounds like the transformational portion is where that behavior change takes place, right? To transform and sustain that breakthrough, it sounds like.
And the transformation part of it is the journey of it, the way of it. My company is called The Unveiled Way. It is, I would say, it's not it's a marathon, not a sprint, because that journey can be as long as it needs to be for you to become the version of yourself that would make that transformation effective in your life, right? So everybody starts at a different place. Every woman starts at a different place.
Right.
And depending on her receptivity to change, that dictates how long the journey can be. In terms of you asking about my unveiling superpower, so that was the whole unveiling, that word, and me calling myself the Brilliance Unveiler was something that was kind of dropped in me by, I say, the spirit. Because what I was recognizing as I did more work with people and women especially is that I have the ability to see true potential, and because of that ability to see true potential, I also see where people are holding themselves back by the narratives they believe, or the ways they see things, or the blocks in their perception or mindset. And so the unveiling is unveiling the things that have either masked the reality from us, or hid the blind spots from our view, or the behavior, the unveiling of the behavior that has been self-sabotaging, that but the client or person didn't realize it. So it's like that unveiling, Brilliance Unveiler, is that when you can remove the obstacles to your impact and then embrace the strengths and brilliance, because I believe brilliance is all the things, the talents, the expertise, the abilities, the strengths, all those things are part of our brilliance. And so when the shadow sides are unveiled to us, and we can and grow and respond and change those things, then our true brilliance can be seen. That's why I say unveiled, because it's already there. It's already there. It's hidden. It's hidden because of all the different things, the conditioning, the narratives, the blocks, the insecurities, the fears, right? So part of that brilliance unveiling is two-pronged. It's helping the woman see her strengths, superpowers, and expertise, and also helping her to remove the obstacles to her impact.
I see. Okay, so it's kind of like pulling and revealing, or pulling that red curtain, revealing, her potential, revealing what she is capable of more than she may give herself credit for.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of things regarding self-sabotaging, doubt, and revealing and unveiling that I want us to unpack here. But before we do that, I'd love to ask you, Natalie, um, can you give us a glimpse into your background and journey that led you and inspired you to do the great work you're doing today?
Yeah, and it's been a journey. It's been a journey for sure. So I am a high achieving person. I had a career in market research. Had a whole journey I went through from being very insecure and lacking in confidence when I started that role. And again, being a woman of color and an immigrant, those things were even, that much more challenging. But I got to a place where, I saw what I was able and capable of doing, and I started to believe in myself. And so I rose to the ranks, became a VP, which is what was my goal. Like I knew I had the ability, the capacity to be that and to lead a team. And I got to that point, but I also knew that job was not my calling. And so I was on the search the whole time, like, what am I supposed to be really doing? What's my purpose? And, one of the things that came up for me was this whole idea of image consulting, which I had known nothing about. It was just kind of popped into my radar. And when I saw it, it was like, wow, like I just gravitated towards that. But my journey, as I tell in my book, It's Your Time to Shine, Girl, starts way before all that. Because as a child growing up in the Caribbean, not being validated a whole lot. Then I was actually very tall. I grew up very fast. At the age of 11, I was already like 5'10". And
Oh, wow.
So there was a lot of body image issues, insecurities, wanting to play small because I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to be different. And so I had a whole reckoning all my teenage life. I wore braces. I had the acne. I mean, the whole thing. I thought I was not an attractive person, and I didn't have anybody telling me otherwise. I didn't have any other counter voice or really mentor to show me otherwise. So I was just caught up in my own thoughts for a long, long time. When I came to this country to do my undergraduate work, I went to Rutgers University, so I would have been 18, 19. It was the first time people started saying, "Oh my God, are you a model? Oh my God, you play basketball?" Because I'm 6'1". Now I'm 6 feet, but I was 6'1". And it was like, like it was a whole new experience of that's my height's a good thing. People like it. Like they see me as attractive and whatever. And so that was the beginning of a new way, but it still took a really long time to break through from the conditioning of, I'm not going to speak out. I'm not going to say what I think, because again, growing up in Caribbean culture, you're kind of told to just follow the rules, be very subservient to authority, and not to they say anything that's contrary, whatever. You at least, and my family, God bless my parents, but they were very conservative, right? So
Yeah.
I see now that I was a child that was probably wanting to color way outside the lines, but my parents couldn't have understood what that meant in that culture. And so they tamped some of that stuff down, which would have made me be insecure and uncomfortable with being who I was, right? So all of that. So I was struggling with all of that. In college, get out of college. I actually was very lucky to have a full scholarship to Cambridge University. And I tell the story in my book of like, I was happy and excited, but when I got there, I was like, imposter syndrome big time. I'm like, I graduated with a 3.8 GPA.
Yes.
I was telling myself,
Yes.
I am not smart enough to be a Cambridge University student. Like, I literally could not believe it. I could not embrace it. And so I spent the first couple of months literally like just thinking, fail, I'm going to fail, not even trying, because I'm like, it just like all the imposter syndrome things I was experiencing, until I had two friends who were actually Black men, both from Africa, actually. One was a friend, one was a fellow student in my program. And they kind of helped me to believe that, no, just open the book and start studying and see what you can do, and you can do it or whatever. And that little bit of encouragement, it made me open the one textbook that I was just avoiding looking at. And I started to go to the library. And as I was like, wait, I'm understanding this. I can do this. And so the long story short of that is that so it is a pass fail kind of program. It was a master's in it's called a master of philosophy in finance. And I passed, and I was one of two women in that program. The other woman did not. She failed out. So, but I did not, by the grace of God. So I see all that to say that I started with a very rocky foundation. And then when I got to my first career, the career in market research, all the insecurities were still very much there. And I had to go through a lot of personal development. I had a lot of therapy, read a lot of books. I invested in my evolution and my growth, because that's all I had available to me at the time. And that's what poured into me. And so slowly, little by little, I was building up that muscle of confidence of I could do this, or I'm good at this. And it's been a slow journey, Aubrey. But so then when I got into the image consulting space, like have the career, I leave as VP, I'm like, okay, did what I wanted to do there. And I was helping all these women, hundreds of women, I mean, literally coming through my doors to feel better, to feel more confident. I was just pouring into them. I don't know where that even came from, but I would like to believe that because I know what it's like to not feel that way, I was just so passionate about helping other women like believe in their own outward, at that time it was outward brilliance, like you can look good, you can wear the right colors, you can wear the right silhouettes, you can make yourself look and feel the way you want to feel. And that's what my work was about for a very long time in image consulting. I wrote a best-selling book, From Beat to Fabulous, that was meant to for the people who couldn't come to me and work with me. I want to give you all the tools, and that's what I did in my book, all the tools to make you feel that you can look your best, and when you look your best, you're more confident, you feel more confident. So I went from that. But I thought that business was going to be the rest of my life, but it was not. And then at some point, it just started to not be as exciting. I wasn't as passionate. And then I was going through my own metamorphosis as well, from a personal level of, life things starting to like really like get heavy on me. I went through a period of depression. And I literally was lost. I lost, and then I had a very firm conviction that I was supposed to close that business down. And I was like, what? This is all I've been doing, for the past how many years? And it seemed crazy, but I was so convicted by Holy Spirit that no, this is done. And I was obedient to it. But I was just like, at that point, I was just so much like at the bottom. Like I was just like, okay, God, I'm going to just follow whatever you say, because on my own, I've been doing this life on my own this whole time. It got me so far, but now I'm at the end of my rope, and I don't know what else to do other than to just look up at you. And to that, I really was at a very, very low point for quite a while. And then wanting to know what had some health issues as well, and other than the depression, but it was just like, what's my next? Like, I had no idea what was meant for me. I'm like, I thought that was image consulting was it, but clearly it was not. And I literally was on a search for, God, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So that took a while. And then slowly but surely, like I was talking to a friend one day, giving advice on her career. And I wasn't even working in a corporate setting at all at the time. And after that conversation, she said, you'd make a great coach. And I thought, okay, whatever. Didn't think anything of it. Then the next day I'm eating breakfast and I just had this, again, conviction of a voice in my head saying, you would make a great coach. And it's like, wait, what? And why it was so like surprising is because at that time, my perception of coaching was not a positive thing because my experience with it as an entrepreneur was not positive. So I'm like, I don't want to do that. I was very resistant to the idea. But again, because I'm yielding and surrendering, I'm like, okay, I'll do one coaching course, and then I'll do that and see what happens. So anyway, that was what I did. And that first course was so eye-opening. And it's so interesting, Aubrey, because along the way in our life's journey, we forget sometimes the seed that was already planted. When I first came to this country, I wanted to study psychology. That was my desire. My father told me he was paying the bill. He said, nope, because in Caribbean culture, that was not a career that was actually like elevated or revered. He said, lawyer, doctor, accountant. And I did it. I went the accounting path, even though I never worked a day in accounting. I graduated. I did well in it, but I knew that was not my path. But here it is. When I did that coaching course, that whole cycle of that's why I wanted to do psychology, because I always was curious about how the human mind thought and think and process information, what made somebody healthy versus not. And so that first course opened up all that to me again. And I was so invested in it. So anyway, long story short, I got my certification. And I guess even though I was still kind of like, okay, God, but what am I really doing? Again, and it came kind of like one client here, one client there at first, but it doesn't take God a long time to show me patterns of things. And so with the first few clients I had, I started to see like, wait a minute, women are struggling with some of the things I struggle with, but now I've done so much work. I know how to help and support them. And then at somewhere along the way, he said, no, you're not a life coach, which is what I thought I was getting into. He said, you're a leadership coach. And I was like, but what am I leading? I haven't led anything in a few years. I felt like unqualified for that, quite honestly. But when I said, again, I was like, okay, you're saying it, but I don't know how I'm a leader. And as soon as I started to reposition my copy and my branding around leadership coaching, and I started to attract certain different clients, it was like, oh, wow, this is really who I am. And it's just like how God, he doesn't waste any of our life experiences. And he uses every little bit, every drop of our experience, expertise, gifts, talents, whatever it is, if we're open to it, to reveal to us who we're meant to be and how we're meant to serve and be in this world. And so that's my journey to being Brilliance Unveiler. And honestly, my coaching certification was great to get me to feel qualified to be a coach. But what I bring in my sessions is so much more than that. It's really a lot of the work I did on my personal development that is in the play in those sessions. And my understanding of things, because again, I had a prompting to do psychology. So I have an innate receptivity to those things that I didn't know, I wasn't aware of until I started doing more of this work. And I'm like, and it literally was like, I didn't even know how much I knew until it just started coming out of me. And it's like, wow, I know a lot because I've done a lot.
I see. I see. Wow, an extraordinary journey. I mean, a tremendous journey, and the ebbs and flows of just times when, like you said, in Caribbean culture, you're taught compliance, to be
Yeah.
compliant, and not to bring a lot of attention to yourself and that sort of thing. And but it sounds like you had a spirit to color outside the lines, but that was tempered and controlled by your parents, their traditional Caribbean culture sense, right? That
Yeah.
they instill in their children and so
Right.
forth, as all families do. And then, of course, coming to the U.S., coming to university, having the empowerment of people giving you compliments. You're tall, and woman of color, and you look like a model and an athlete, and those things, very empowering. But that doesn't mean that it turns around your self-esteem
Right.
like a light switch, right? It took some time. Even the imposter syndrome that set in with you, where the two African men convinced you to open the book, give it a shot, give it a try. You are good enough. You are capable, right? Just all these different things that God puts in front of you to remind you that, hey, you are capable. Hey, this is something that you have a gift for doing. All you have to do is take that first step
Yeah.
and be obedient. And you have been obedient. Without a doubt, I can tell. And I wanted to go into some of those things that plague us, right? And some of the
Yeah.
things that have plagued your clients over the years. There's various things that I'm sure your clients have struggled with, such as imposter
Oh
syndrome
my gosh.
and feelings of some may feel alone, even though they have a family and they're a leader of a company. They may feel alone, like they are carrying this huge, heavy load
Yeah.
all by themselves
Yeah.
with family, company, business, etc. So, what is the most common struggle that you've helped your clients with that they have had?
That's a great question again. And you're touching on some things for real. I would say, again, this is a reality of, especially for women, and especially for women. I have clients of all women, clients of all ethnicities, but
Mhm,
especially for the women of color, but all women, the
mhm,
higher we get in the leadership realm, the lonelier it can be. And it is so easy to get into our own heads and self-sabotage and have narratives that do not serve us. And so I guess one of the patterns I saw and keep seeing is like limiting beliefs, quite frankly. And it's like,
mhm, mhm,
but the client isn't aware that it's a limiting belief. They think that's just how the world operates. And
mm,
it's like having a coach who is for you, who is believing in your brilliance, and who can share a perspective that's different and makes you go, huh, I've never looked at it like that. Whatever the
yes,
situation or the life or
yes,
people, that is everything. And one of the things I say in even my copy, in my sales copy now, is having a guide and a champion, because what I see myself as is a guide and because I'm an encourager. That's exhortation is one of my gifts as well.
mhm,
I am
mhm,
that champion. I am that belief. I can see, for some reason as well, somebody gives me a vision and there's alignment. I
yeah,
see and feel that vision for them, Orbit. I can hold that and remind them of that until they tell me it's no longer their vision and I can let it go. But I will
I
hold
see.
that. I'm so, what's the word? Invested in them seeing that vision to fruition, because I know it's what the spirit heart is showing them. But sometimes, a lot of times, Aubrey, it's the mind. Our minds are great. Don't get me wrong. Our brains are phenomenal. And a lot of the women I work with, it's so interesting. They tend to be very strategic thinkers, very connect the dot people, high achieving women. But that's a strength, and it could be a weakness, because we tend
Mhm,
to overanalyze, overthink, and then let our minds trump what our heart, in our wisdom, as I call it now, intuition, may know. And
mhm,
one of
mhm,
the things I feel like I'm becoming a proponent and advocate for is, because I believe, and it's happening in my own life as well, like the more I can listen and tune into the spirit talking to me, the
mhm.
better decisions I make. And a lot of times those decisions trump what my mind says. But if I were to listen to what my mind says, I would go down the, let's say, normal traditional path or whatever it might be. But
Yeah,
what spirit tells me might be a little contrarian, but it is the right, like, the more you lean into that, the more you realize, oh my God, it's so uncomfortable, until you start to be like, this is the way to do it. So
right.
your question was, I know I'm answering a lot of different ways, but the patterns are this: the limiting beliefs, the isolation, because when you're at that higher echelon, especially when you get into C-suite stuff,
Yeah,
if you don't have somebody who is objectively giving you objective feedback, who is not attached to the the behavior outcomes that happen, but are invested in you as a human being,
right,
that is priceless. And the clients who, I have a few clients who've invested in me for years already, because having me as that has been the game-changing thing. And it can look like troubleshooting and having that different perspective. But sometimes, Aubrey, I have clients where it's about the faith walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plain and simple, the faith walk, right? And walking by faith, not by sight, and feeling and knowing in your heart that you will come out on the other side.
Yes,
You will come out
even though
on the other
evidence
side.
is saying contrary, the data seems like it's
Yes.
that, like, but no, the knowing is knows, and having that champion to say, trust the knowing. I know this looks like this, but that's walking by faith, not sight. That's exactly what it means. We cannot look at what we see, but trust that there's bigger and more behind that, right?
Absolutely. And in many cases, that's how we should walk. That's what we're called. That's how we're called to walk, because we can't tell the future,
No.
right? We can't tell the future. The best we can do is to be obedient and to, open our hearts to hear what God is saying to us, and thank Him, show gratitude for the gifts that He's blessed us with, that we can use in helping others, just as you are using with your gift of just exaltation and unveiling. I mean, it's very, very fascinating, and it's very powerful. Now, I wanted to ask you regarding that, okay? Unveiling the brilliance and bringing out the best in your clients. Do you also coach them in, how can I frame this? Do you also coach them in how they, as leaders, can unveil or bring out the best in their teams? Or is that a byproduct of what you share with them in working on them, if that makes sense?
Yes. It's the latter. So
Okay.
I have this whole thing. I try, like, let's say, how I put it. Like, I talk a lot about in my blogs and social media posts. I talk about becoming the version of yourself, the leveled up version that's divinely designed to do the thing God ordained you to do. I believe and know that when we are in alignment with that divine design, and in that career or in that business or whatever, and we are able to operate from the fullness of our brilliance, where the limiting beliefs are no longer controlling the show, and
Right.
we are confident in who we are and who we be. I say who we be because as leaders, I literally was having a call with a client just earlier today. And it's like, I keep saying, it's less about doing and more about being. And I have
Right.
a whole thing I talk about where our posture as a leader. Now, it's an acronym that I created. The first one is about presence, but it's way more than just the visual posture. It's all the empathy and the authenticity and the self-awareness and the emotional intelligence and all of the things we can bring as leaders. And when we can bring those things, our teams are healthy, our teams are empowered, our teams are the best, right? So,
Right.
but you have to be that before you can lead a team that can get that out of you, or wait, a team that can feel safe to be free in their own brilliance, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And you know what? That brings us as a precursor to the next couple questions I want to ask you, and they're all related. Okay. So the way you clarified and explained how it's imperative in the work that you do in helping the leaders realize their capabilities, their brilliance, and having them in a certain state that that will manifest beneficial outcomes for
Yeah,
their teams. They have to be in a good state themselves before
absolutely.
they can interact with the teams as well. That's makes all kinds of sense. Now, I wanted to ask this, of you, and having that leadership background, I'm sure you're very familiar with this. Over the past 10 years or so, maybe even 15, but I'm going to stick with 10 for now. I've noticed in working in corporate America myself that there's been a sort of paradigm shift when it comes to leadership styles. Okay. Yesterday, when I say yesterday, I'm talking old school. I'm talking, in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and even part of the 80s, right? There was the old school style of leadership where it was do as I say, I'm the boss, no questions asked. No, you can't come to me, asking why. You can't come to me, saying I have a better idea of how to do it. This is how we do it. And it's that leadership, right? That old school style of leadership. Whereas today we're talking more about servant leadership, transformational leadership, breakthrough leadership. And so I would love your take on this, Natalie. What do you think are the contributing factors that caused this shift from, say, 60 plus years ago? Was it technology? Was it generational ways of thinking? Was it a little bit of both, or maybe some other element?
That's such a great question, and I wish I had prepared an answer for that. But I'll say, because it's layered. But here's what my immediate response to that is. I think it's a lot of different factors. I think technology plays a role, but I feel like what's been happening across in those time periods, especially coming in out of the 80s, 90s into the 2000s, is that little by little women are being more empowered. And so I think a lot of the old ways, well, they're still there, right? A lot of the old ways are still there, but they're shedding a little bit by a little bit. But a lot of the old ways were built by white men. Let's put it that way. That was the playbook. And and as women, we and other men of other cultures too, but especially as women, we had to operate by a playbook. I always use that word playbook that didn't serve us at all. And so I think what's happened with the feminist movement and more empowerment and more, women's marches and all the different things is that we are learning to take the reins of our career and our lives in a way that our parents and grandparents didn't know how, had the courage to do.
Yes.
With the Me Too movement. I mean, there's been so many different things that have shaped the way women see themselves in the world, and especially in their careers. And I think that I have this whole thing around autonomy, authority, and agency. I have my alliteration, my writer in me, but it's about our power. We have power that we can wield, and we are starting to see it now. But I think what's happening with the shift is that when women who are in a healthy place are given those leadership roles, we bring our feminine superpowers to the table. And some of that, not to say men don't have this, but I would argue that women have these more. The empathy, the listening, the sort of like reciprocal engagement, and communication, like that. They call those soft skills still. But I often argue and say, oh, they're not soft at all. They're powerful. They are strong skills. But now, because before the old playbook was, it was like these skills, and they were very like metric based and data driven, and those things are still appropriate, sure. But again, as leading is about people. And so I think what companies are seeing now is that if you're a leader that is not a people-centric person, you're not going to be a great leader at all. You're going to be a leader that has a toxic environment, dissatisfied workers, all the things, and that is going to lead to low productivity and profit. So they're seeing the correlation between that and their bottom line, and it's like, so now more companies, more senior execs, more CEOs are embracing this idea, even with DEI coming into the play right now.
That's right. I was about to bring that up.
All of the trends are now, and again, with other voices, whether it's people of color, women, or whatever, other voices now have a say. And so that's expanding the playbook that leaders can operate in. And I think it's like, I've been saying this since 2021, But I believe that women are really, especially Black women, there's so many of us that are doing things that are defies the odds, and big things like Kamala Harris being VP and all the
Absolutely.
different things. Like
Absolutely.
so many, Stacey Abrams, like women who are like broke all the codes and the ceilings and
Yeah.
different things in
Yeah.
roles that we couldn't have believed even 20
Uh,
years ago. Sorry.
yes. Yes. No, that makes all kinds of sense, and I appreciate you mentioning that, and I'm chuckling because I did have a point blank question for you, and again, not to get political or even drift in the topic of politics, but I wanted to ask you just point blank,
Mm.
is there still a glass ceiling?
There is still a glass ceiling,
I
but
agree.
it's shifted. It has
Yes.
shifted, but it's still there. It's
Yes.
absolutely still there.
Okay, agreed. Agreed. One thing that's very encouraging, from what I'm hearing from you and from what I have at least experienced in my own company, is that, as you said, women of color, other people, they are starting to recognize that they have this power, that they have this voice,
Yeah.
and I think it's so strong when it's in numbers that companies are listening.
Yeah.
Companies are listening because they want to retain their talent, they want to acquire new talent,
Yeah.
and now it's like the demand, okay, or not the demand, but the leverage of who really has the power. The
Right.
leverage changes from employer
Mm-hmm.
to employee or candidate or
Mm-hmm.
potential employee, right?
Mm-hmm.
The employee now is saying, hey, I recognize I have the power. If you want my talents at your company, here are some expectations, you know,
Right.
and so years ago, 30, 40, 50 years ago, it was, oh my goodness, you're such a great company,
I would
whatever
do
it takes to
anything.
get hired, I will
Yeah.
do anything, right? Well, not anymore.
Right.
Now the employee has a list of expectations, and it becomes stronger with each generation that graduates from college that joins the job market, it sounds like. So
What I was going to say, like, I feel
mhm,
like the millennials, oh my
mhm.
God, and the Gen Zers,
Yes,
they are bringing a lot of that. Like, I'm not going to tolerate this, like they're
exactly.
bringing that.
Exactly. And you know what? I have to say this. They're not shy about leaving the company
Exactly.
to
Yeah,
find something bigger or find something different or find something more that's aligned with their expectations, right? I
absolutely.
mean, when I was younger, when I was their age, I would hold on to that job for dear life, and I'd be at work early, like 15 minutes early every day. I just constantly moving and moving, like, yeah, I'm gonna just, make my name, and they want to make a name as well. But,
On their
it's like,
terms.
yeah,
On
it's
their
on
terms.
their terms, 100%.
Yeah, yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Wow. Wow. So, Natalie, have your clients ever come to you and tell you, after coaching and working with them, something they've learned about themselves? What have they told you that they've learned about themselves?
Yeah. So I think of like testimonials I've gotten. It's stuff like I had one woman say something along the lines of I learned that she in her career, and she's been in the same company
Hmm.
for like say 20 plus years, but
Hmm.
I'm just kind of stuck because she could only go so far, whatever, in this company, big
Yeah.
company in the healthcare industry. And one of the things we worked through with her is she didn't realize that she had muted her voice. She didn't
Hmm.
realize that because she had a boss who was threatened by her, who made her sort of like literally, she didn't realize at the time, but like literally made her play smaller and smaller and smaller because that boss was so threatened. She said, you can't
Mm.
do this, you can't do that. So she started to learn how to not be visible or whatever.
Yeah.
And through a lot of our coaching, it came to her like, oh my God, I have a voice and I want to use it. And that I am going to blaze some new trails. Like her confidence in herself
Yes.
and the things that she knew about herself from before became more apparent and more like, oh my gosh, I'd forgotten this is who I am. And just her even saying like, I know I have trails to blaze, and she's also believing. She said something like and I forget what the actual words, but it was just like, I'm going to use my voice. I'm not going to stay quiet and silent. And that's she is meant to be disruptive.
Yes.
In terms of it, in a good way, healthy, like a healthy, good trouble, as John said, could be good trouble in terms of changing the way things are done in a better way, but it's going to mix it up, and that might be unfamiliar and create a little bit of like quote unquote chaos. But at the end of the day, it's going to be better. So that, like things like that, or that, I think a thing I hear all the time is, and this is a big thing, now I know what my strengths are. So many women come, and these are experienced women, these are women in their 40s and 50s who come to me first saying, I don't know what I'm good at, I don't know. And they leave like, oh my gosh, I am this, I do this, I bring this. I'm like, really? So that confidence and conviction of, I can now advocate for myself more strongly because I know what it is they want from me and need from me and that I bring. That is huge. Get that all the time, because that's one of the things that for me personally was part of my journey recently, even in the past 3 years of, I don't really know. I mean, I knew certain things about my skills, but to have some more very clear adjectives to describe, like, I bring this, I do that, I connect dots, I'm a strategizer, I'm an intuitive, like to start to see in myself in action and to look back on my careers and see what I was doing. Huge. I wish I'd known back then, but anyway, I know it now. So I'm very passionate about helping women, not just to name, I call it, using Gallup's terminology, name, claim, and aim. So embracing their strengths, all of it, and the expertise, and to fuel that and use that to propel them to be in the purpose, with the mission that they are specifically designed to fulfill. Because I truly believe that we each given a mission and a purpose in this life, and that with our gifts, talents, expertise, I call them tags, talents, abilities, gifts, and strengths and expertise in there, that we have something that we can do to make an impact in our industry, in people's lives, in the world, whatever it might be, whatever our arena is. We have a mission, and I believe all people have that if they only knew.
Right. They have to know. And awareness is one of the first steps for sure. Right. Especially self-awareness.
Wow.
Now, you touched on something that I wanted to ask you about, and maybe you can clarify or unpack for us just a little bit here, is the silent disruptor. Okay. What is the silent disruptor and the power that they have in realizing that they can have impact, a positive impact in their environment?
That's something I don't know where it comes from, but maybe that's part of me I'm seeing a little bit, but I still don't know it fully. But I get so excited by disruptors, and I mean, again, positive, constructive disruptors who. So it could be something as simple as, I'm going to change the way we things operate in this company, which is a disruption in its own self. That's a small disruption, but it could be, I'm going to change the way this industry does a bigger disruption. Or it could be, I'm going to change the game entirely and create a whole new path. So I talk about the trailblazers. So disruption to me is not confining oneself to do things the way it's been done, but going with, again, back to the brilliance you bring, and being confident that the way that you might see it in your mind, and the way you have the skills to bring that forward, to change the way it's been done so that it's actually better, more effortless, more efficient, more productive, more impactful. That's how I see disruption. It's like, it's changing things for the greater good. Because we can keep on doing the same things the same way, get the same results. They say that's what what's that saying goes, oh God, I'm not gonna get it right. I'm not gonna get it right. Let me not even go there. But like, we have to, if we're looking for like, how can we expand our view of let's say this industry or this company or this role, we have to be willing to say, what can we change? And then with change comes disruption, because there's unfamiliarity, there's uncertainty, there's the unknown. And that can be scary. But if we are courageous enough and brave enough to go, but there's something on the other side that will make us come out better, stronger. Again, that's disruption to me. And I'm finding that I'm meeting so many, especially women, who are just changing the way, even image consulting, a field I was in for so long. I'm seeing new people coming out. This young lady I just met, and she's putting image consulting with God authority. I'm like, what? I'm like, that's amazing. Like, I mean, I'm just like, just changing the way so it's about image, but it's about how you can see how God is, she's turning this image thing into a deeper thing.
I see.
And I'm like, oh, good for you, girl. That's one example. Other examples are, I have this client who was a lawyer and she had all the skills, but now she's like, I'm done with that. I'm tired of that. And she is literally creating a whole new experience that the vision was so big. It took us a good year to get her hands around it because it was that big, Aubrey. But literally, she's at a point now from a year ago, even 6 months ago, she's at a point now like, I see how with God, this is actually happening. And she's still building this thing. But what she is building, I keep reminding her, I'm saying, you are a disruptor by nature. When you are trying to color inside the lines, that is not your brilliance, because it's not. For her, she is an outlier. And I'm saying to the outliers out here, embrace it, because that is your brilliance.
Yes.
You see what I'm getting about it?
Yes. No, I understand. That is your brilliance, why wouldn't we embrace our strengths, versus trying to improve our weaknesses?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, there are some things that, we want to improve and be better on, but at the same time, leverage those strengths and realize the potential and the impact that has, right?
Yes, and I would say leverage them, but as actually like almost part of the leveraging is strengthening the muscle of that strength, because sometimes we have strength, but if we haven't engaged in it enough, it's not as potent as it could be. So it's first is like recognizing the strength, and then like, okay, I'm going to start seeing myself using the strength, and how can I use it more? And then focusing on that. We all have weaknesses, and I'm not saying to ignore your weaknesses, but you can delegate them. You can partner with somebody else who has a better, can handle that thing. But you do want to spend your time focusing on where you will never gain real ground.
Right. That's true. No, so true. So true. I couldn't agree more. And this is a great conversation. And I love talking about strengths and leveraging, and even when times go bad, right? And we all experience that. Leaning into those bad times instead of turning your back to them, for me, it helps me better face the adversity, better face the struggle. I'm leaning into it. I'm seeing it for what it is, instead of going like this and turning my back to it, And so I think there's strength in doing that as well. But again, the self-awareness and having the willingness to be uncomfortable, right? Because it is discomfort.
It's funny, like I'm writing my newsletter for tomorrow as we speak, and part of it, that's kind of the message I'm sharing, Aubrey, is about, I just had experience at the beach where, so I'm not a swimmer, but I love the ocean, and the waves at Myrtle Beach were very rough. And what I found myself doing, because I'm uncomfortable with the waves and all that, but I still want to enjoy the water. I would brace myself for the waves, and it would smack me hard. And I was like, and I was like, and then the second day I was like, I had this thought again, the download. What if instead of bracing, you yielded to the wave? And it was like, what? Again, a voice in my head. And I went, okay, what is this? All right, okay, I know what that voice is. Okay, so I said, okay, let me just try. What does that look like? And I try to like relax myself. Then the waves come. I'm like, hey, Natalie, don't brace. Just go with the flow of the wave.
I
started going with the flow of the waves. They weren't smacking me, and I realized it's not as bad as it was before. But the biggest thing was this is not a lesson about ways, Natalie. This is a bigger lesson about how you approach your life.
Absolutely.
And so my big takeaway was, oh crap, because even though I know so much and I've done so much work, my default mode is protection.
Yes. Embrace.
Brace, right?
Yeah.
And especially when it's a challenging, unfamiliar thing. And so what that experience showed me, and what I'm sharing with my subscribers, is that sometimes what you just said, like when we yield and surrender, and so it's not about me controlling, but about me saying, okay, I don't control the wave, but I control how I respond to the wave.
100%.
And I could control how I respond to the wave, either by trying to control myself and brace myself, or I can just go with the flow, go with the wave. Those are two entirely different experiences that are under my domain and authority. And when I went with the latter, when I went with the surrender, I was having a much more pleasant experience, a more incredible experience. Yeah. And it wasn't as scary and like uncomfortable.
Yes.
So it's like a life lesson of, what I'm saying, what I said, I'm still writing it, but literally it's like, when life brings challenges to us, nobody wants a challenge, of course, but they're real and they're here. And so we're not going to like avoid, be in denial, like resist. Resistance gets us nowhere. So like what you said, we have to be in reality of, this is the challenge that's in front of me. How am I going to respond to this challenge?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, and that's what it really comes down to, right? How do we respond to the challenge? Because we're all going to be faced with them. We're all going to be smacked with them. And I'm a man of metaphors. And so, in what you're writing and using the metaphor of going in the water and, responding to the waves when they approach, I'm in lockstep with you, Natalie, 110%, for sure.
Thank you. Because I'm still writing. I'm like, I hope this lands for them. I didn't mid-land for me, but you never know.
No, this lands. It totally lands. And so wanted to ask you, how can the listeners learn more about the great work you're doing? How can they follow you? How can they pick up copies of your books? How can they get in tune with Natalie Jobity?
Natalie Jobity, the Brilliance Unveiler. Okay, so the easiest way is via my website, theunveiledway.com, and unveiled is, but I have to spell because I realize people don't know what that word is necessarily. The THE unveiled, UNVEILED way.com. I'm on Instagram at The Unveiled Way. I'm also on LinkedIn a lot because that's like where I feel like my people are, even though a lot of them are on Instagram too. So you just look up my name, Natalie Jobity, on LinkedIn. You can follow me there. I post often there. I post most often on LinkedIn, actually. I have a bunch of quizzes and different things that are so helpful and beneficial and are free, complimentary. You give me an email address, you get your results. And the one that's really, really popular is a leadership style quiz, where I have 8 different archetypes, and depending on the responses, the person gets put, categorized into one. Every person, not every person, but everybody who's give me feedback about that is blown away by how the result matches who they want to be or who they are. I know that one's like so powerful. So that's on my website. In the header, you'll see leadership style quiz, but I'll share the link with Aubrey, and he'll put it in the show notes. I have a confidence quiz as well. I mean, and my book, It's Your Time to Shine, Girl, is in Kindle and paperback on Amazon. I'm hoping to get an audio version because everybody wants that, but that has not been easy to figure that out, or not figure it out, but like to get the right people to help me do that. But hopefully in the beginning of the first quarter of next year, that will be a real thing.
Wonderful. And just like you said, Natalie, we will be putting all of these links in the episode show notes, the social media handles, the links to the books and where they're available at, the link to her website, even the links to the quizzes, right? So we want to make sure that we equip our listeners with all of the tools they can access to connect with Natalie. Natalie, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show, sharing some amazing insights of how you unveil brilliance in others. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was a great time with you, Aubrey, and I really appreciated the questions, and I love how deep you went in there. So I'm really grateful. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And hey, look, If you have a loved one, a coworker, a friend, a neighbor, just someone who doesn't seem to be themselves lately, maybe they're going through some dark days of despair, not quite sure where to turn or who to turn to, I humbly ask that you please share this show with them, because on the road to rediscovery, we want our listeners to know two things. Number one, you're not alone. And number two, there's always hope. The road to rediscovery, it's a movement, a revolution. And guess what? You are now part of it. We're all roadies on this journey of life, and it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of The Road to Rediscovery. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com and leave us any questions or comments you may have.